The film begins in 1880 with the grisly murder of the Hopkins family. This tragic event was not an accident. It was a brutal massacre carried out by a gang led by Arthur Burns, Charlie's older brother. Charlie and his younger brother Mikey are involved in a violent confrontation with the police. All of the gang members die, with the exception of Charlie and Mikey. Captain Stanley, a determined officer, arrives on the scene and presents Charlie with a life-changing proposition. He offers to forgive all of Charlie's crimes and release both him and Mikey on one condition. Charlie must murder his older brother, Arthur. Captain Stanley warns Charlie that Arthur is not only extremely dangerous, but also a maniacal figure who terrorizes everyone, including his own gang. Arthur's terrifying reputation is so strong that even his followers and law enforcement avoid confronting him, as apprehending him almost guarantees death. Captain Stanley believes Arthur's presence endangers Australian peace, and that true security cannot be achieved until men like him are eliminated. To ensure that this mission is carried out, Stanley detains Mikey and gives Charlie 9 days to locate and kill Arthur. If Charlie fails, Mikey will be executed on Christmas Day. Charlie is faced with a difficult decision. In order to save his younger brother, he must eliminate his elder brother, who represents the violence and chaos that Stanley is determined to put an end to. This sets the stage for a perilous journey in which Charlie's loyalty, morality, and survival instincts collide. Captain Stanley has been transferred to this remote area against his will, but he is determined to rid Australia of crime and bring some peace to this lawless land. His wife, a compassionate soul, is struggling with the violence around them and is plagued by nightmares about the brutally murdered Hopkins family, with whom they were close friends. Her fear and sadness strengthen Stanley's resolve to make this place safe so that they can live peacefully together. The townspeople soon learn about Captain Stanley and Charlie's secret deal. It turns out that one of Stanley's junior officers leaked the information, causing outrage and mistrust of the police, particularly Captain Stanley himself. People in town feel betrayed and angry that such a deal was reached with a man linked to a notorious gang. Amid the tension, Captain Stanley's superior informs him of a shocking decision. Mikey, Charlie's younger brother, will be flogged 100 times as punishment for his role in the Hopkins family murders. The captain is appalled, not because Mikey is innocent, but because such a severe punishment is essentially a death sentence. This brutal decision would jeopardize not only Mikey's life, but also Stanley's deal with Charlie, who is now on a desperate mission to kill Arthur in order to save his younger brother. Captain Stanley finds himself in a moral and professional quandary. He must choose between his sense of justice and his personal promise, knowing that if Mikey dies, his chances of eradicating Arthur and bringing peace to this turbulent town will be lost, jeopardizing everything he stands for. Captain Stanley promised Charlie that if Arthur was killed, Mikey would be freed. If this promise is broken, Charlie may seek revenge, endangering both the captain's wife and himself. Soon after, Charlie's younger brother Mikey is sentenced to a public flogging. The punishment begins, and as Mikey is whipped, his injuries worsen. The townspeople, while initially eager to see justice served, are quickly disturbed by the cruelty they witness. Even Captain Stanley's wife faints at the horrific sight. Mikey collapses from pain and blood loss after receiving 40 of the intended 100 lashes, leaving the whip stained with his blood. Captain Stanley, unable to tolerate the brutality any longer, intervenes. He takes the blood-soaked whip from the officer and throws it away in defiance, causing blood to splatter on his senior officer's face and uniform. The senior officer is outraged by Stanley's intervention and suspends him immediately. Meanwhile, Charlie is traveling through a rugged landscape in search of his older brother Arthur. Charlie drinks while traveling, haunted by the weight of his mission. Along the way, he meets an elderly man who reveals himself to be a bounty hunter. The bounty hunter is also looking for Arthur Burns, which complicates Charlie's already difficult mission. Charlie, realizing the bounty hunter's intentions, knocks the old man out and flees. Charlie is exhausted and finds himself resting on a rock when a local tribesman appears and spears him in the chest. Before Charlie can react, a gunshot kills his attacker. Charlie awakens to find himself in Arthur's remote hideout, nestled deep in a rugged landscape of caves and crevasses. Members of Arthur's gang had rescued him, nursing his chest wound and restoring his health. Charlie now has several opportunities to kill Arthur, but he hesitates, stifled fueled by their shared history and brotherhood. Meanwhile, Captain Stanley's junior officer arrives at Arthur's camp on a covert mission. When Arthur confronts him, the officer desperately warns him that Charlie had been sent to kill him. As this tense conversation unfolds, the bounty hunter returns to his mission and sneaks into the camp, tying up a sleeping Charlie and one of Arthur's men. Arthur returns to camp to find the bounty hunter preparing to kill them. He shoots the bounty hunter, severely injuring him, and then starts torturing him with a knife, taking his time to make him suffer. Unwilling to witness the brutal scene, Charlie intervenes and quickly ends the bounty hunter's life, putting him out of his misery. This act demonstrates Charlie's reluctance to commit senseless violence in stark contrast to Arthur's ruthlessness. Finally, Charlie confronts Arthur and reveals his true intentions. "I was sent here to kill you, but I was unable to do so. You are still my brother." The admission emphasizes Charlie's inner conflict and sense of loyalty, even as he struggles with the task he was forced to complete. Charlie tells Arthur everything, and they decide together to free their younger brother Mikey from prison. Charlie and Arthur, disguised as police officers, arrive at the police station with their gang members who are pretending to be prisoners. This allows them to pose as law enforcement and gain entry without raising suspicions. Inside the prison, they find Mikey and manage to free him. However, Mikey is in critical condition, still suffering from the brutal 40 lashes he received. As Charlie holds him, Mikey succumbs to his injuries and dies in his arms. The gravity of this loss is palpable, and Charlie's companion coldly remarks that it was Charlie's fault for leaving Mikey behind in the first place. Meanwhile, Captain Stanley and his wife are at home when Arthur and his gang arrive, looking for vengeance. They start shooting at the house, and Arthur storms in, dragging Captain Stanley to another room. He mercilessly beats Stanley, determined to hold him accountable for the pain he has caused his family. Arthur summons one of his companions, who brings Stanley's wife into the room, forcing her to watch as her husband is wounded. In a final act of cruelty, Arthur shoots Stanley in the shoulder while his companion attempts to assault Stanley's wife. Just then, Charlie appears, and without hesitation shoots the would-be assailant to protect her. Then, in a moment that reveals Charlie's ultimate decision, he turns his gun on Arthur, shooting twice and ending his reign of terror. Charlie's final act ends his brother's violent legacy, fulfilling the painful promise he made to Captain Stanley, and ultimately choosing to save what humanity remains, even if it means sacrificing family. Charlie turns to Captain Stanley and says, "No more," implying that the cycle of violence must end here. Arthur, injured and weak, staggers out of the house. Charlie notices a gun on the table, one last chance to end Arthur's life for good, but rather than accepting it, he lets his brother go. Turning to Captain Stanley, he simply says, "I want to be with my brother," and exits the house. Charlie follows a trail up a small mountain and discovers Arthur, who is sitting and weakened. He joins him in silence. Arthur, sensing the end, murmurs, "You have finally put an end to me. So what happens next?" Charlie says nothing, just stares out at the setting sun as Arthur's life fades away, mirroring the sun's descent. Arthur eventually breathes his last. Thank you for viewing this recap of The Proposition. If you enjoyed this explanation, please like, subscribe, and check out our other movie breakdowns on our channel.